Hey, welcome to this video. My name is Chad and we are going to get going into the next steps on changing the barrel out on my PRS rifle. So if you've been following along, a couple weeks ago I finally got around, changed the barrel on my PRS rifle. So I'm running the same barrel, same caliber, and same company, everything. So I got an Impact 737R Action and their Studeville chambered Bartline barrels that they do there in-house, and I'm running the 6 Creedmoor. I went, just swapped the barrel, nothing changed, no caliber, everything's the same, and got about 80 or so, a little over 80 rounds through it now, about 85, and I've got enough brass from my match brass that I've been running through it that I'm going to try and set up my new Area419 S-Series die. I showed it off a couple weeks ago, but I didn't want to set the shoulder bump on it because I was afraid I might have a slight variation with this new chamber. So we're going to take a look at some of the tools that I use to determine what this new chamber is like compared to my old one, and then hopefully we'll get this die set so that I can just run through, size everything, and also run a mandrel through it all in one step, which is really cool, and the main reason I wanted to get this die so I didn't have to keep running through a sizing die and then a mandrel die and run every piece of brass through 2 times. Okay, so just to kind of start off and show what I'm working with, this is the RCBS tool they call the MIC, M-I-C, and it comes with this contraption right here and then a different attachment that you use to check your measurements to your lands inside your chamber. I don't really bother with that because I haven't seen a need yet that I need to tweak with my seating depth. I maybe get another 0.1 to 0.2 MOA on my group size figured out if I did that more, but I mean, from what I see, I'm pretty easily able to get under half-inch or under half-minute groups, and I just don't see the point of spending the time to do that and then running through all the tests to figure out what's an optimal seating depth. I think I figured out one that works pretty well, and I'm just going to stick with that. So this is some of my previous alpha brass that I had sized, and the cool thing about this is you can just drop your case in, and it's got an open hole at the bottom so you can run it primed or unprimed or fired and not have the primer removed. If you got a little flow out and it's not perfectly even, you do have a detent or a hole in there, so you don't have to worry about that. It also has a hole on the top so you can check your sized case or fully loaded cases with projectile seated, and you just run the threads down and see. Right now it's showing me 0 and 0 are both lined up, so that's pretty much semi-spec. What I've noticed is from my previous sizing, I'm usually either right at 0 or minus 1,000. So okay, so that's not going to focus, so we'll take a look at it here in a minute, but pretty much this is telling me that I'm running pretty close to a semi-spec chamber. Now this is some of my fired brass from my previous barrel chamber, and usually I'm right at about 1 to 2 thousandths over. So after firing my brass, it's only pushing the neck forward 1 to 2 thousandths on average, and that's kind of the number that I need to use to get the die set. So you want to know where your neck is starting, and then as you size it with the die, you're going to push that neck down a little bit as it compresses the outside to get it formed back into original shape. Now this stuff is right there, another 1 over, so pretty consistent there. Here's where we're going to do a real test, and we'll take a look at that together. Okay, so this is some of the brass that I have been firing as I've been breaking in this barrel. And so what we're going to do, put that in there. You see we've got a line marking here, 0 up to 3 thousandths, and then this has a bunch of markings there. So you want to make sure and get it up and down pretty good there. that one looks like it grew. That 0, if that got all the way up to line up with 0 and 0, then you're right at semi-spec. This one is telling me it's about 2.5 thousandths grown out from what semi-spec would be. Usually I like to check a couple. See, that one's what I've been checking on the few that I've seen so far. That's about 1/1000th over. So what I've noticed is the majority of these are anywhere from 1 to 2 over. That one's only about 1/2,000th over. So for the most part, this brass has been pretty consistent, and that chamber is only letting them grow 1 to 2 thousandths. And then you'll get a fun one like that. That's right there at 3 thousandths. So sometimes you want to make sure, if you get one that seems off, make sure and check it again. Yep, that one's going to be a 3,000. So we just want to remember that for the future. If the majority of them are going to be 1s and 2s, then that's the number that we're going to want to use to set our die. So there's another 3. So got a little mix of everything, but that's kind of the cool part about this tool, is it's pretty quick. Just thread down, and if you get 0s lining up, that should be what semi-spec is, and then anything above that is longer than semi-spec, and then below it is under. So really what we're looking for on setting up a die is, I know most of mine are going to be here 1 to 2 thousandths above 0 or longer. I just want to get to where my die sets them at 1, maybe 2 thousandths below. Really, if I can get to 1, I'll be good, and then I'll know I have my die set. So it looks like these are actually very consistent with what I had from my previous chamber. So we'll check a couple of these just to show you. Boom, so that one is right at 1.5. And that one's maybe a half. We'll just call it 1. So like I said, a lot of these look like they're going to end up being right close to the same. That one's 1 out of this batch from the new chamber. So I'm pretty much going to go with a 2 thousandths bump. So I'm going to go from 1 above to 1 below, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to adjust the sizing die until I'm right there at 1 below 0. If I go a little bit over, not that big a deal. Obviously, it'll fit in the chamber better if it's a little bit shorter. So that's the next step. Okay, I think I've explained before, this is how I tend to do my process. I've got a pad there, and I use these 2 loading blocks that are pretty much, their only job is to use for getting lubed. So what I'll do is just dip a few in, and that just lubes the inside of the necks, because we are running a mandrel, so we want to make sure and have our necks lubed a little bit. And I'll just run on here, and I don't need much. This is the alpha die, or the alpha sizing lube that I have in here. I'll show you real quick. So this is what I've been using. Really, really like it. And I probably didn't need to do that, but to get the full effect, we'll go ahead and take a look at running it that way. So usually I like to work it in a bit. So hopefully this lot I have already annealed, and I just haven't got around to sizing it all yet. So I found it usually runs a little quicker if I two-hand it, but I'm really not putting very much actual lube on the bodies of these. This stuff has been impressively effective at getting the job done and not needing very much. So we'll make sure we got the necks nice and lubed, but hopefully my goal here is to only need to get 10 or so of these lubed up right now, and I'll be able to set the die. I'm going to run one through it just to see where I'm set currently, because I don't remember from the last time, and I'm hoping I don't have to make too many drastic adjustments, but more than likely I'm going to have to make a few, so be right back. Okay, so if you remember from the initial setup of this die, you might recall that the head of this die is quite large and I'm not able to get a wrench on here, so I was just using a crescent wrench and getting it locked in place, and then I've got the lock ring on the die already clamped down and pinned, so we should be good there. Like I said, we're going to use this tool and we're going to try and see if we can get this height of the die set in here. Like I said, we don't want very much, but we do need a little bit of shoulder bump. So here we go. And what I'm noticing is it's definitely more noticeable that this is a mandrel die on the upstroke. You can really feel the tension as you're pulling up and running the mandrel through the inside here. Okay, so let's see where we're at there. That is actually really, really close. Like that's almost giving me a 1/1000. So I'm just a hair below. So I'm almost at 1/1000 where it's set right now. Interesting. Okay, so we really do not want to go down very much. Really, I'd almost probably call that good. I did want to try the idea that somebody had to just take the cap off and see how that would work. So that definitely lets me get the wrench on. Okay, so we want to bust the lock nut loose, but not lose our place here. So that is going to be right in line here. Okay, so we want to go down just a hair. Okay, so I probably should have put a little bit of a paint pen mark on here just so I know a little bit of where I am. I kind of did a feel. I could feel that the bushing loosened a bit there. Okay, let's get that cap on. And that's just keeping the mandrel pressed down. Okay, cool. Well, let's see what happens on case number 2. In theory, I just gave it a little bit of extra thread, tighten in the downward direction. To me, this is always the worst part of a new sizing die. I've only had to do it a few times and I've never enjoyed it any of those times, but trying to find that sweet spot where, see that one, to me, I'm down about 2,500. So to me, I think I went a little too far on that one. In all reality, that is probably good. Like, it will do the job, but I'm way too picky about numbers. So, you know what? I like this idea. Whoever suggested that, thank you very much. That jumped out. Okay, number 3. Let's see what happens. Okay, so we'll see if my guesstimate is going to be very good here. And I'm still right about the same place I was, so did not gain or lose anything, but definitely didn't gain what I was hoping to. Okay, so I made another slight adjustment. I went ahead and put a mark just with a black Sharpie on this black die, and then a mark here on my press. And I gave myself a little bit of a loosening direction. So whether or not this has any effect, I'm not really going to know, but ideally I'll be able to judge how much of an adjustment that was and how it transfers to the brass, and then I'll be able to make a better next adjustment. So let's see what happens here. Okay, so that I'm probably going to leave that. So that one's giving me right at 1 thou. So I'm just below the 0 line. And that's really, really right at where I want to check. So now we'll double check. Cap is tightened down good. My lock ring is tightened down good. So let's just try a few more, see if we get the same result. Now if I get 2 or 3 and they're all within 1/2 thousandth or so, I'm going to call it good. Okay, so that one pushed down to a 2 below, which is still kind of within the range that I want, so not going to make any adjustments there. I like precise numbers, but dealing with this, I've started to learn that not every single thing about it can be exactly precise all the time. So it messes with my my number brain problem, but as I do this more, I'm starting to realize that there are certain numbers that I really don't need to worry so much about, and that one's right at 1.5 thousandths. So that's telling me I was good to not make any adjustments there. So what I'm going to do is run 2 in a row here. 1. And 2. Man, just being able to do this and know that I just did 2 different steps. The old way I was doing it with 2 different dies, that is going to be a huge, huge time saver for me on match weeks. So I'm going to get the lube cleaned off of both of these I just did. We'll see where we end up here. So ideally, I've got a match in 2 weeks. So hopefully I can get this set up today. And then through this week, maybe get some ammo loaded and be able to test it next weekend, make sure that everything's good, and then the next Saturday I'll have a match. So that one's just under 1,000th. And then this one is almost 2,000. So I think I've got it set pretty good there. That should give me average of 1 to 2,000 bump back, which is pretty much what I had my my other die set up at. So what I had been running was a Redding match 6 Creedmoor, and this was just the bushing die. The cool thing about this one, I don't have to mess with bushings. The outer dimensions are all size to Sammy spec, and then you adjust your neck tension with the mandrel. So instead of having to change everything over and run it through a Cortina or any kind of mandrel die and then run every piece of brass through twice, I'm able to just take my brass and boom, sized on the way down and mandrel on the way up. And that is huge for me, just being able to save the couple of minutes. So lost my light, and another one is good. So that's right at the shoulder bump number that I was wanting to see. Cool. So that gives me some good hope going forward. And I also know now that I can just take off the cap and use the regular tool, so I don't have to mess with crescent wrenches and extra pliers. Really cool. Okay, so that gets my sizing die set. Put the cap back on that guy. Do not want to lose any of it. But about the only thing I'm going to still have a bit of a question on is going to be how does this neck tension adjust my speeds and obviously impacts on target. Now, I'm able to get my neck tension gauge to go right about to the same place that I used to before. Sometimes I could get a little bit higher on this 241, but I definitely could never get to the 242, and I slid easily over the 240. So this has a little bit different neck tension, maybe just a hair more. I think if I keep my powder charge the same as it was, even though my velocities are a little slower in this new barrel, with this slightly tighter neck tension, I'm probably going to have close to about the same. So this time of year, the sun's of course going down earlier. I've got a couple hours. I'm going to try and throw primers and powder in these, and if I can make it out before dark, I'll get a little shooting footage, and we'll see if that's going to have any effect. Hey, if you're the kind of person that gets kind of excited about something and then realizes you forgot a step, go ahead and get subscribed right down below here, because I just did that and you'll fit in very good here, because I definitely get my brain running ahead of myself quite a bit. Okay, so I was just looking at getting ready to throw primers into these, and then I realized I still need to clean them. Like, I can probably wipe off, you know, the lube from the outside and maybe run a brush on the inside, but to know real consistency, I probably should go ahead and let it tumble like I tend to do when I do a full batch. So I'm going to hold off on trying to get these loaded and tested fully today, just because I'd rather do it a full proper way. So more than likely what I'm going to do is get the rest of this batch sized through this week and get it tumble cleaned, and then go ahead and properly run it through primers. I'm not too worried about my overall results, because as you've seen from the last couple videos, I'm having really good luck even with different ammo, able to hit at 500. All the different ammo I've tried so far has grouped really well. So I think as long as I load this up the same way I have been, I'm really not going to have much of an issue. The only thing that might change are going to be my velocities, and I may have to tweak my zero just a little bit depending on how these impact on paper. I really think it's going to be really close to the load I already had, even though I've got a slightly different neck tension. Should be very close, so we'll find out next weekend, I guess. Let me know if you think of anything that I should be trying on these. Like I said, I've had really good luck with this alpha case lube. I know Area419 says to use the Hornady one shot when using their die, but I've just had such good luck so far with that alpha lube, and I had some sticky cases with the one shot, so I'm leaning on what I know works well, and to me that just involves a couple extra steps of cleaning. So since I use that graphite on these, I'll take a brush and just run it through the neck and make sure nothing is caked onto the inside of the necks, and then I will drop these in the cleaner. And then I'll forget, I skipped a whole bunch of steps when I said I was going to load these up and take them out to test. So next I will run them through the Henderson and just do a chamfer deburr on the case mounts, and then I'll add primers and powder and bullets. So I still got quite a few steps, and I definitely want to just do it as a full batch. So we're going to stop there for these this weekend and try to get out and just fire some of my factory ammo, or work through some of my other boxes that I need to just get first firings through on a couple other boxes of this alpha brass. So trying to get a good supply stashed and have all the same lot number and same everything. So consistency is key. I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you very much for hanging out with me while I get my new die set up to my new chamber, and hopefully all that goes well, but not really going to find out till next week. So better make sure and come back then and see how this all goes. And then hopefully that goes well, so I'll be ready for my match on the first Saturday in September. I really do hope you have a great rest of your day and a wonderful weekend. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.